They came seeking beauty, adventure, the wild, untamed freedom of the American West. They came with a camera and a roadmap with 2 young children in tow. A family of 4, tourists from Germany, excited to explore the wonders of California. Their names were Egon Engelhard, 34 years old, a computer technician from Dresden. His son, Georg, just 11. Egon's girlfriend, Cornelia Meyer, 27, a retail worker, and Cornelia's 4-year-old son, Max. They were a newly blended family. Egon had raised Georg on his own for years. Cornelia, likewise, had been a single mother to Max. But together, they formed something new, a little fragile, but full of hope. And now, they were on their first major trip together, a 3-week tour of the American Southwest. They'd landed in Los Angeles on July 8, 1996, rented a green Plymouth Voyager minivan, and set out for what was meant to be the journey of a lifetime. They saw Las Vegas, Hoover Dam, the Grand Canyon, and then they headed for Death Valley. Death Valley, a place of extremes, scorching heat, bone-dry air, and a haunting emptiness that stretches on forever. It is the hottest place in North America. In July, daytime temperatures often soar past 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius. Car engines overheat, electronics fail, and human beings, unless properly prepared, can die in hours. But the German family likely didn't know the full danger. They weren't reckless. They were just tourists, following a road through a national park. There were signs, yes, warnings in English. But German is not English, and the warnings may have seemed exaggerated, if they were even understood at all. On July 22nd, Egon Engelhard wrote in a guest book at an old mining cabin in Warm Springs Canyon, "We are going over the pass." That message would be the last known trace of the family for over 13 years. The pass they were referring to was likely Mengel Pass, a rocky mountain route once used by 19th century miners, steep, narrow, and absolutely unsuitable for a 2-wheel drive minivan. But to the Engelhard-Meyer family, it may have looked like a shortcut, a path through rugged hills, shown as a through route on their German-language map. What they didn't know, what the map didn't say, was that beyond the Warm Springs site lay Anvil Canyon, and beyond that, nothing. No gas stations, no shade, no water, just heat, just time, just silence. For years, their fate was a mystery. No phone calls, no distress signals, no bodies. The desert simply swallowed them whole. The trail they took that day, Anvil Canyon Road, starts as little more than a jeep track and quickly becomes worse. Sharp rocks, sand washes, steep grades. Even experienced off-roaders in high-clearance 4x4s avoided in summer. But Egon kept going. The family likely didn't realize they had crossed a line, from adventure to danger, from sightseeing to survival. They had no satellite phone, no GPS, no proper hiking gear. They had a 1996 Plymouth Voyager built for paved highways and suburban errands. Not this. Somewhere near the canyon mouth, something happened. A tire blew. The road was too rough, too hot, too cruel. They stopped to change it. But when rangers later found the van, the spare tire had been used and was destroyed. Even worse, the fan belt was missing, likely torn off by rough terrain. The Voyager was crippled. Now stranded miles from help, they faced a terrible choice: wait in the vehicle and hope for a rescue, or try to walk out on foot. But Death Valley doesn't forgive. In July, the sun rises before 6 a.m. and scorches the earth all day. By 10 a.m., the temperature often climbs above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no natural shade in Anvil Canyon, no reliable water, no cell signal. To stay might mean dying of exposure. To leave might mean the same, but slower. Still, they tried. Evidence found later suggests Egon and Cornelia packed what little water they had into day packs. They likely carried the boys, Max and Georg, as long as they could. But in 120-degree heat, carrying a child becomes impossible after mere minutes. They headed south-southeast, toward a marked spot on their map labeled Russell Camp. What they didn't know was that Russell Camp had been abandoned for decades, a rusting shell of tin and cactus. There was nothing there. No one. No shelter. No water. They were chasing a mirage on a map that lied by omission. We can't know the exact timeline, but forensic evidence suggests they walked for hours, possibly days. Rangers believe they hiked 10 to 13 miles over sand, rocks, and dry stream beds before they succumbed. At some point, the water ran out, then the energy, then the strength to carry the children. At 11 years old, Georg may have tried to walk on his own for a time. At 4, Max would have needed to be carried. Did they lay the boys down together in a patch of shade beneath a creosote bush? Did Egon or Cornelia try to go on alone? We don't know. But what we do know is this: they were never seen alive again. 3 months passed. Tourists came and went from Death Valley. Rangers patrolled Furnace Creek. The summer heat pressed on, but no one noticed the van. Not until October 21st, 1996. That day, Dave Brenner, a National Park Service ranger and search and rescue specialist, was flying a routine surveillance mission by helicopter over the remote southern edge of the park. As he scanned the land near Anvil Canyon, something caught his eye, a glint of sun-off glass, far from any road. He circled the chopper and spotted what appeared to be a vehicle, half buried in sand, miles off the main trail. It wasn't just unusual, it was alarming. Brenner landed nearby and approached. The vehicle was a green Plymouth Voyager. Plates registered to a rental agency in Los Angeles. The doors were closed. No one was inside. No keys, no luggage, no people. He called for backup. When the ranger team arrived the next day, they searched the vehicle thoroughly. They found empty water bottles, a child's toy, German language maps, a broken fan belt, melted cassette tapes, and in the glove box, a rental contract. It listed the name Egon Engelhard. At first, there was confusion. Why had a German tourist family driven so far into nowhere? Where were they? Had they been rescued? Had they been kidnapped? Then, someone remembered. 3 German citizens, 2 adults and 2 children, had been reported missing in late July when they didn't return their rental car or board their flight back to Frankfurt. The pieces clicked together. This wasn't just an abandoned car, it was a grave marker. Within days, search and rescue teams mobilized. Dozens of rangers, volunteers, and cadaver dogs scoured the area on foot and from the air. They traced faint footprints into the canyon. They used helicopters, horses, ATVs, but the desert had already done its work. They found no bodies, no bones, no clothing, not even backpacks. It was like the earth had swallowed them whole. Rangers followed every lead. They theorized the family had tried to walk south toward the ghost camp of Russell, long since abandoned, but they could only guess how far they got. There were no emergency calls, no sightings, no notes, no help ever reached them. And as winter approached, the search efforts slowed, then stopped. The case was now cold. For over a decade, the story faded from headlines. But in Germany, the families of the missing never gave up. Egon's sister wrote letters to the U.S. government. She begged for renewed searches. She wanted to know. Had they suffered? Had they survived for days, waiting for help that never came? No one could answer. The family had vanished. But the desert wasn't finished with them yet. The Death Valley Germans case went cold. The van remained in an evidence yard. Search teams moved on. The media lost interest, but the families in Germany never forgot. For 13 years they waited. For phone calls, letters, remains, any word at all. They got nothing. They grieved in a strange, suspended way. Not in full, because there were no bodies. Not in hope, because they knew what Death Valley meant. They simply endured. Death Valley kept its silence. No hikers stumbled on the bones. No scavengers exposed what was hidden. Not even flash floods unearthed them. The Engelhard Meyer family had disappeared into absolute emptiness. That silence was broken in 2009. In November of 2009, two men, Bill Iwasko and Tom Mahood, both experienced desert hikers and amateur sleuths, ventured into the deep backcountry near Goler Wash, a remote wash near the edge of Anvil Canyon. They weren't looking for the Germans. They were retracing a completely unrelated disappearance, a man named Bill Iwasko lost in Joshua Tree in 2009. But Mahood had long been fascinated by the Death Valley Germans' mystery. He had spent years researching maps, satellite images, and ranger reports. He'd followed old rumors, reading long-forgotten trip reports and geocache logs, and that day they decided to explore a new area, a narrow wash far from known trails. There, scattered under a creosote bush, they found bones. Rangers were called. Forensic teams followed. What they uncovered were partial remains, a human jawbone, vertebrae, ribs, and fragments of a child's clothing. A small red backpack, a passport buried in the sand. Faded, almost unreadable, but the name was still there, Cornelia Meyer. The desert had finally relented. Over several weeks, more remains were recovered nearby. DNA analysis confirmed it. Egon Engelhard, the father, Cornelia Meyer, the mother, and at least one of the children. Forensic evidence suggested the adults died within a short distance of each other. One of them, possibly Egon, may have walked ahead and collapsed. The other followed, carrying a child as far as they could. One chilling detail: a child's little shoe was found placed gently beside a bush, suggesting perhaps that the boy had been set down, sheltered from the sun as much as possible in his final hours. They had made it over 11 miles from the vehicle, in 130 degrees Fahrenheit heat, with two children. On foot, with no water. The discovery stunned park officials. For years, they had passed near that very wash. It had never revealed its secret. Because in Death Valley, even a human body can vanish beneath sand and shadow in a matter of days, and remain hidden for decades. The case was closed, but the tragedy was never solved in full. Not all of the remains were found. Only Egon, Cornelia, and partial bones from one child were ever confirmed. Georg, the 11-year-old boy, may still lie out there somewhere, buried by time. His disappearance is still technically open. The Engelhard Meyer family didn't plan to die in Death Valley. They planned a road trip, a vacation, a photo album of red canyons and blue skies. And like so many visitors before them, they brought the wrong assumptions into a place that punishes the unprepared. So what exactly went wrong? Let's start with the map. They were using a German-language tourist map, printed before GPS was common, and not to scale. On that map, the Warm Springs Mine, Russell Camp, and Mengel Pass appeared as a casual driving route, a scenic shortcut. There were no warnings about four-wheel drive being required, no indications that Russell Camp had been abandoned since the 1950s. Just a smooth line drawn between dots. The rental car, a Plymouth Voyager minivan, was entirely unsuited to the route. Two-wheel drive, low clearance. A family van trying to cross an ancient mining road full of jagged rock, soft sand, and no signage. It didn't take long for the road to destroy it. Then came the worst decision: leaving the van. In most survival scenarios, the safest option is to stay with your vehicle. It provides shade. It's visible from the air. It signals to rescuers that someone needs help. But Death Valley is deceptive. The heat makes the van a coffin. The silence makes every second feel infinite. And the German family may have believed they were close to help, just a few miles from the Russell Camp listed on their map. So they gathered what water they had, not enough, and began to walk. Experts believe they were misled by both the map's simplicity and a false sense of proximity. In the cool morning air, the landscape may have felt crossable, the trail wide, the terrain conquerable. But by mid-morning, temperatures began to climb. By noon, the thermometer likely read over 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius. Their water was likely gone within the first hour. Sweat evaporates before it even forms. The skin burns. The internal temperature rises. Children suffer faster. The Engelhard Meyer family likely made it 11 to 13 miles before falling. One of the children's shoes was found neatly placed near a bush. a final gesture of care, or surrender. Cornelia's passport was located nearby, buried in sand. It had been placed, not dropped. This wasn't a chaotic end. It was a grueling decline, a slow, agonizing descent into dehydration, confusion, and exhaustion. The desert didn't kill them in a dramatic way. There was no cliff, no predator, no storm. It simply watched, waited, took the water from their blood, the strength from their legs, the direction from their minds. And when they could walk no more, it took everything else. Death Valley is a place of forgetting. Bones vanish beneath dust, footprints fade in the wind. Even metal rusts faster here. But some stories leave an imprint deeper than time or weather can erase. For the rangers who worked the case, the ones who found the van, who combed through that scorched wilderness with dogs and hope, it was a haunting memory they never shook. One ranger said later, "We didn't just lose 4 people out there. We lost a piece of our certainty. We realized how easy it is to disappear in that landscape. Completely, absolutely." When the bodies were found in 2009, the relief was bittersweet. Yes, the family had finally been located. Yes, their fates had been confirmed. But it wasn't closure. Not for Egon's sister, who had written letters for years begging for another search. Not for Cornelia's parents, who never got to bury their daughter. And not for Georg, the 11-year-old boy whose remains have never been recovered. Some believe his bones lie nearby, still buried in the same wash just inches from where searchers passed. Others believe he wandered farther, perhaps the last to fall. But we don't know, and we may never know. Today, visitors occasionally stumble upon the story. Hikers post photos of the wash where the remains were found. Amateur sleuths write blog posts tracing the family's path. The van was eventually removed and destroyed. It had become too much of a dangerous curiosity. People tried to find it, to take pieces of it. What's left are the records, the testimony, and the wind. And in certain hours of the evening, as the sun falls low and the shadows stretch long, some rangers say they feel a presence in the canyon. Not ghosts in the Hollywood sense, just memory. In 2012, a small memorial plaque was placed discreetly near the wash where the bones were found. It bears no names, only a message. In memory of those who walked this path, may their suffering be remembered. May their mistake teach others. May the desert never forget. The Engelhard Meyer tragedy left behind a legacy of warnings. Tour guides in the region now emphasize the importance of staying on paved roads. Park maps have been updated with clear signage. New systems were introduced to monitor overdue vehicles more aggressively. And international rental companies now brief tourists more seriously on desert risks. But the truth remains simple and cold. One bad decision in the wrong place at the wrong time can be fatal, especially in Death Valley. Death Valley's unforgiving landscape is a harsh teacher. Its lessons are learned the hard way, sometimes too late. But the tragedy of the German family reminds us that survival is not about luck. It's about preparation, respect, and knowledge. Here are the vital lessons from their story. Lessons that can save lives for anyone stepping into a desert wilderness. 1. Always stay on marked paved roads when traveling in extreme environments. No matter how tempting an off-road shortcut may seem, unpaved desert roads can quickly become impassable and dangerous. If your vehicle is not designed for rough terrain, don't risk it. 2. Carry sufficient water. Much more than you think you'll need. The human body can survive only a few days without water, but in intense heat, dehydration can happen in hours. For every hour in the desert sun, plan on at least 1 gallon of water per person per day. 3. Know your vehicle's limits and check its condition before any trip. The Plymouth Voyager was not built for rocky canyons or deep sand. Check tires, belts, and cooling systems carefully. Bring a spare tire and tools. And always have a plan B. 4. If stranded, staying with your vehicle is usually the best choice. Vehicles provide shelter from the elements and are easier for rescuers to spot from the air. Walking out on foot in extreme heat often leads to exhaustion and death. 5. Inform someone about your itinerary and check in regularly if possible. Tell friends or park rangers where you're going and when you expect to return. If you don't check in, someone will know to start a search. Survival is a balance of respect and preparation. The Engelhard Meyer family's fate is a tragic reminder that nature is not forgiving. It does not bend to our will or mercy. It teaches silently through heat, thirst, and endless sand. The story of the Engelhard Meyer family is more than a tale of tragedy. It is a reminder of the raw power of the natural world. A world where one wrong turn, one bad decision, can change lives forever. Today, their memory lives quietly in Death Valley. Visitors pass the canyon where they disappeared. Rangers tell their story to new generations of travelers. And the desert, vast and endless, keeps its silent watch. The Engelhard Meyer's fate teaches us to respect the land and prepare carefully. To understand that even modern technology can fail us, and that nature's power is timeless and absolute. If you take anything away from this story, let it be this: prepare, respect, survive, because the desert remembers, and so should we. What would you do different in a situation like this? Leave a comment. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like, subscribe, and follow for more real survival stories from the edge of human endurance.